Hello, everyone. I'm Sybil Wilkes, and this is what you need to know. Over 30 million people have died in the devastating storms and violent tornadoes that have leveled entire communities in the South and Midwest. And this is just over this past weekend alone. Friday is Saturday. And sadly, it's still early in the season with more storms expected. State leaders in the region have declared emergencies to respond to the damage. Among the states hit hardest by the violent storms, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, New Jersey, and Delaware. Joining us today is Colt Hagmaier, Deputy Assistant Administrator for Recovery for the Biden administration. Colt, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the time and giving folks some information that I suspect many people really need.
Good afternoon, Sybil. Thanks so much for having me on.
Great. Now, Colt is supporting the assistant administrator in leading a workforce of more than 8,500 employees who administer the Department of Homeland Security's largest grant programs, including FEMA's $35.8 billion public assistance program and $2.5 billion individual assistance disaster program, and also responsible for overseeing the work of the Recovery Front Office and Recovery's 5 divisions. It's a lot of divisions and a lot of things I don't know that we will really understand a lot of it, Colt, but I hope that you can give us some understanding regarding what's going on and the devastation. So as people woke up on Saturday, maybe a week ago, or this Saturday in Mississippi or Indiana or any of these other places in my home state of Illinois, and they're looking at the devastation around them. Once you get past the emotional part, Colt, what should people do? And I'm just saying this in the event that these things happen in the future, which is likely to happen.
Yeah, so I think everything starts before the actual incident, and so our advice to you all is to make a plan and to be ready to execute it at little or no notice. And so, especially with situations such as tornadoes and severe storms, that they don't have as much lead time as some of our other hazards, it's really important that you know where in your house is the safest place, where in your community is the safest place, and how to get there quickly. So that's really where we start. Once you have an actual incident, once you have damage, unfortunately, to your home or to your car, the first thing to do is to take inventory, make sure everyone's okay, of course, and then start documenting that damage. Take some photos of your home. Look for records that might, demonstrate that you own the home or that you're renting the home. Get your lease. Get the information about your insurance. File with your insurance if you have a claim. Don't wait to let them know. Once you're stabilized, start checking on your neighbors. Start finding out what they might need. Find out if there's opportunities in the community to volunteer or give back. Or if you're not in that position, if you're not, if you're one who needs assistance, don't be shy about saying so. You can talk to FEMA, you can talk to local faith-based communities, you can talk to your local civic organizations. Every disaster is unique, and each one has a different composition of organizations that come together to support the recovery. FEMA is only ever one piece of that. And so understanding what's available in your community is really important.
I've got to tell you, the last experience I had with FEMA was with friends of mine who were affected by Hurricane Katrina. And you know how long ago that was. And it wasn't the best reputation. And even today, people are saying, oh, you don't want to mess with FEMA. It's a different day. And the skill set has been improved. And the way that you have prepared and the way that you, and it's a different group of people as well, find young people like yourself who are out there and know how to make these things happen. It's a different day. People should not shy away simply because of what they may have experienced years ago, and regarding to the reputation that FEMA had from the past.
Well, I definitely agree with you, and thank you for calling me young. I'm at the precipice of a big birthday, a milestone birthday, and so personally, I thank you for that. But you're right. I wasn't here during Katrina. A lot of FEMA employees were not a part of the organization then, but we do have some, and they remind us of the challenges we faced as an organization in those days. And I can tell you that we're not the same organization then. Even though I wasn't here, we're not the same. We are an organization that prides itself on professionalism, and we are a humanitarian-based organization. We have rules and we have authorities, but fundamentally, we're here to help people. And so we do things every day to the best of our ability to ensure that we're providing assistance to those who need it. And we've come a long way. We've diversified our organization. We have far more minority representation within our workforce than we ever did before. We are recruiting constantly from the communities that we serve so that we understand the perspectives of those who live in different parts of the country, who face different challenges, and that we are postured to support them post-disaster like they deserve to be supported.
That's great to know, and especially when you say that you recruit people from the community who have a better sense of what the needs and who the people are there, and kind of personalize this. One of the things that you said was make a plan.
Yeah.
And so that plan would behoove a lot of people who today go, whew, we escaped that one. But to also look at these things and as you said, get all your important papers and things together and have them in a place, not necessarily that could be disrupted in a storm, but like have these documents and things on your phone to scan them so that you have them on your person, right?
Absolutely. And, if you're not sophisticated enough to do that, make a copy of them and give it to someone you trust to keep in their home. So if something happens to where you store yours, okay, my dad has a copy of that, or my brother has a copy of that, or my neighbor has a copy of that. And they'll be able to support you in the event, and you can reciprocate, right? You can hold important documents for them as well.
So the coverage of this also not only homeowners, but you mentioned renters, people who are renting are not left out in the cold. They too can apply for assistance, can they not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they're encouraged. And when people are going to the government for assistance, do they register in advance in the likelihood that they may be in that tornado alley, or is it just registering once the damage has occurred?
So we treat each incident as a completely different registration. So if you got assistance in a different storm and then are impacted again, you can re-register. But that
Mhm.
means that each time that you need assistance, you have to come back to the system. And so there's three different ways, or actually there's more than that, but three major ways, different forums in which you get there. But we have our phone number. It's 1-800-621-FEMA. So that's 1-800-621-3362. You can go to disasterassistance.gov on any computer and register. You can download the FEMA app and register that way. After a storm happens, or after there's impacts to a community in which the president decides that a supplemental federal assistance is warranted, we actually send out what we call disaster survivor assistance teams. And they will meet at libraries or churches or local department stores or wherever is appropriate for that community to meet people where they are and help them register. We also send them door to door in the communities that are significantly impacted. We're doing that in Arkansas. We're doing that in Mississippi, in those communities where they might be difficult to get to a centralized location because of the impacts to those neighborhoods. So we will go door to door and we will register people right there on an iPad, and they can follow up through the phone or through the website, or subsequently go to one of those centers if they need to. But we're trying to meet everybody where they are with the assistance they need.
And you are paying for temporary housing as well as essential home repairs. What are some of the other things that the funds cover?
So we have a number of different programs, and it really depends on the needs of the individual. So we
Sure.
have programs that help homeowners repair their homes. We have programs that help renters find other places to rent and provide additional rental assistance. We have programs that cover things like when cars are damaged, or things like that. It really depends on the unique circumstances of each disaster, and the states actually have say in some of the types of assistance that are provided. So it really depends on each state.
One of the things that struck me, Colt, is that, and I should reintroduce you again. Colt Hagmaier is with the Biden administration and one of the administrators of FEMA, and we're talking about what happens after a storm strikes your community and how to go about it. And Colt is giving us a lot of great tips that you might want to pass on to people who unfortunately may have already gone through this or in preparation for something in the future. Colt, as I was saying, one of the things that struck me was in Mississippi. And there was one story of a woman and her husband rode out the storm in their trailer. And she, after the storm passed, she looked out to where her sister lived in her trailer, which was pretty close to their family, and there was nothing. There's absolutely nothing there. How do you give funds? How do you give people money for things that no longer exist? Where do you start with that?
Yeah, it's difficult, right?
Yeah,
Those are tragic scenarios that really, it requires an individual touch, and at the national level, that I will admit can sometimes be difficult. It's one of
hmm,
the areas that we are putting the most focus in right now. How do we make our programs more accessible and more compassionate for the people we serve,
right,
understanding they're each coming from a different situation? And so we are implementing uh, new approaches, new flexibilities that really meet people where they are, or we try to as best we can, so that their unique circumstances are taken into account within the guardrails that Congress establishes within our fundamental authorities. So a situation like that, I'm sure your friend is going through, or I'm sorry, the person you read about is going through not only the financial loss, but the loss of her community. And I don't know if she lost her sister, but her sister obviously had significant losses as well. And so the
sure.
support structures that she would probably be relying on are taxed out as well. And so,
Hmm.
we try to lean forward. We partner with other federal agencies to fill gaps that maybe we can't. And we also work very closely with volunteer organizations. I sit on the board of something called the National Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. You can go there to their website to find assistance and also to donate. Um, it's NVOAD. And we have regular sync calls. I'm having one tomorrow to talk about activities from national volunteer organizations that are coming to these communities and meeting unmet needs. So, FEMA will only ever be able to do so much. We are an assistance program.
Right.
And so we really rely on our partners, whether that be other federal agencies, the voluntary organizations that I just spoke about, or even just local community organizations that are not on the national scale, to create a matrix of support for those individuals. And it comes down to what their unique needs are, and we do our best to provide what we can.
One last thing, thank you for that, and that really brings up another point. And it's good to know that people can volunteer if they are not directly affected by this. It's good to know that they too can do their part in their community. What role does insurance play in all of this? People who do or do not have, will that affect the kinds of funds, and how quickly are people expecting to be reimbursed?
Yeah, so let me just back up 1 second, and on your point about volunteering, just add that your neighbors are always the first responders, right?
Right.
And so recognizing that if you're safe and you're secure and your neighbors aren't, like that's what makes our country
That's
great.
the greatest form of
Right.
volunteerism, right?
Exactly. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I last weekend I was in Arkansas, and I visited a town called Wynne, Arkansas.
Hmm.
And in the center of that town, that community, is their high school. It's a multi-generational high school. It's been there since the 50s. Everybody I met was associated with that high school in one way or another. And unfortunately, that high school was just destroyed. Instead of everyone just standing around and feeling sorry about that high school not operating any longer, everywhere I went were employees from the school and high schoolers volunteering. They were giving out water, they were at the donation center, they were helping people clean up their yards. There were high schoolers everywhere, and they were all wearing their yellow jacket. That was the school mascot, their
Hmm.
yellow jacket clothes. So I don't think we can understate the importance of volunteerism in this country, and how blessed we are that that's the culture that we live in. Going
That's
back
true.
to your question about insurance more specifically, I think it's important to recognize that FEMA's assistance is supplemental to state assistance. It's also supplemental to insurance. It does not replace insurance. It picks up where folks who didn't have insurance because they couldn't afford it or for other reasons have needs, or when they don't have enough insurance. It's not a make you whole situation. It's a helping hand. And so it's so important that if you have insurance, to recognize like what documentation you need and to pursue that first, because we're not able to duplicate that, but we are able to supplement it. And so the more effectively you work through that process, and you can probably use the same documentation for your insurance claim as you can for supplemental FEMA assistance. So it's the first step in a multi-step process. If you don't have insurance, then obviously FEMA is an earlier call.
We've been talking to Colt Hagmaier, Deputy Assistant Administrator for Recovery for the Biden administration. Colt, thanks so much for all the information. One more time, if you give us that number, that 1-800 number you gave us.
Absolutely. It's 1-800-621-FEMA. It's 1-800-621-3362 or disasterassistance.gov.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all the good work that you are doing. And we appreciate it and hope that we'll talk to you in not so stressful times the next time.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too. And that's what you need to know. I'm Sybil Wilkes.